Hello, strangers. It's funny, but you look familiar, like you've been here before. Well, I suppose that's to be expected by now, so settle back, because I've brought you another true, scary story not posted anywhere else, and this is story number 10.
While I was born in Chennai, India, when I was a kid, my parents moved us to Mayapur, sort of a rural annex to the most populous and up-and-coming Hyderabad. The goal was to one day get to Hyderabad proper, there, or I guess Bangalore. These places were always talked up like real cream of the crop places. Only those who were going somewhere would make it there. But first, I had to pass my exams, and that meant college. It's hard to get into a college in India. There are so many people for so few slots. I'd already been an exchange student to the United States, and that's how I met my best friend in the world. When I asked him for help, he was happy to. With the help of him and my former host family, I applied for a student visa to come to the USA's less hyper-competitive college environment, and I even got into the same school that my friend had picked, a good one, albeit with a weird mascot. Can anyone listening tell me what, exactly, is a Saluki? We roomed together, my friend and I. A lot of late nights, a lot of online gaming. Our room was small, with our desks set up on opposite walls. I got so used to him being behind me, clacking away, that even to this day I still half imagine him there. It's funny how quickly you lose awareness of your surroundings. You get used to things. Anyway, money was tight. I worked weekends in a call center, and while I have additional stories about that, it's mostly what you'd expect. But I worked hard and stuck with it, and by the end of my sophomore year, I was able to put away enough to get a plane ticket back home for Diwali. I made it back home for 9 days, 5 for the actual festival, and 3 on the back end to visit school friends. One of them, Avrek, lived in Hyderabad. Yeah, one of the promised lands I'd always dreamed about. He made noise about me coming back home and daring not to visit him, so that was the plan for one of the final days I was home. To get to his place, I had to bus it, then walk away to his home. That went all right. It was good seeing my friend in the flesh, and not just as some pixelated cow guy dropping heels, as he was our pocket healer in World of Warcraft. It was walking back from his place to the buses that I ran into a scary situation. It had gone twilight outside. I was walking fast because my parents wanted me home for dinner, and the way the buses were running, still on holiday schedule, there was only one bus out to Mayapur every 90 minutes. If I didn't make the 5 o'clock bus, I wouldn't be making it home until close to 8 at night. I would never have heard the end of that from my mother. So I was hauling it. As I'm speed walking towards the bus station, I was coming up to this little alley. Motion caught my eye as a little orange dog came limping out. It was a pie dog, lots of those running around in the area, nothing unusual there. But there was something wrong with its back leg. It was dragging itself by its front paws, but even though it looked to be in great pain, the little guy didn't make a sound. I'm pretty used to stray dogs, so it made sense that they had to be tough to survive. But this one was just a pup, and my heart just sank. I stopped just before it, bent and slowly stretched my hand out to it so he could sniff me, see that I wasn't a threat. The poor thing just dropped his little head into my open palm in response. Well, Now I really couldn't just leave him. I carefully scooped him up, and as I raised him to my face to see his back legs a little better, I was struck with rancid fear. Just acid coming up my throat in a sudden whoosh, like I was going to be sick right there on the pavement. Because there was something shiny, glinting in the short orange fur, glistening and wet with blood. Shards of glass. They were lodged in his little back legs. Not accidentally, this looked to have been done on purpose. There was too much glass, for one thing, to have lodged into two skinny little puppy legs by accident. And it was really pushed in there. It wasn't like some accidental piece that he'd laid down on. Some sicko out there was torturing dogs. The pup was so tired, he just let me hold him, examine him. Who could hurt such a sweet little thing? Without thinking, I unzipped my jacket and tucked him inside against me. He snuggled right in, and despite the bolt of fear I'd had, I was again touched by how sweet he was. I cupped him with one hand, holding him in my jacket and against me, then started walking back down the road. I didn't know what I'd do with him, but I couldn't just leave him there. As I neared the next alley, the little pie dog in my jacket started whining. I looked down at him, smiling, telling him, "Oh, so you can talk." I brought my free hand up to pet him and calm him a bit, telling him it was okay. I was taking him to get help. But one more step in the direction of the next alley, and he keened again. Worse, I felt his tiny back legs kick at me weakly. That must have hurt him terribly. I stood a moment. Then, not really understanding, I turned and began to walk across the street to get to the other side, away from the alley, or whatever was in that alley that he was so adamantly warning me about. Immediately, the whining and kicks stopped. All I could feel was the occasional exhale of his breath. Something in that alley had him spooked. The thought occurred to me, whoever had done this to him had done it there. And maybe they were still nearby. At this point, I was thinking some terrible little kids had done that. Kids can be so casually cruel to animals. Real preteen serial killer stuff, you know? But as I kept walking, I didn't have to wait long to find out. Being careful to look casual, just skimming my eyes around like a random passerby, I glanced back across the street at the alley as I strolled past. From the darkness emerged 3 grown men, scruffy and unkempt. Their eyes weren't on me yet, but all around. They were looking about, then down on the sidewalk, as though they were looking for something shorter, smaller, maybe orange, injured, weak. My heart jumped, blood pumping with fear, and underneath that, anger. The night was still, cold enough for jackets, but no wind to block sound. As I kept walking, their voices carried. One asked,
"Where is it? Where did he crawl off? I thought you said he wouldn't make it far. Some bait."
They seemed to spot a trail, the pup's blood likely, and started walking back down the sidewalk the way I'd come, to the first alley. I caught a low rumble, an approaching truck, but then realized it was the little pie dog in my jacket. The little hero was growling. I was struck by this. First, he'd drug himself away from these bad men, who clearly thought they'd wounded him so badly he would be stuck there. Bait, as they said. The perfect bait. A passerby couldn't help but stop and would be distracted, an easy target for some people laying in wait a few meters ahead. And now he growled, not to save himself. He'd done his best to warn me away from the alley, away from the bad men who'd hurt him, to save me. Now he growled, again doing his best to sound ferocious. A guard dog, in protection mode. Just as all this clicked, and the realization of what this whole thing likely was made clear to me, one of the men turned and looked at me. My blood was still pounding in my ears, but now it felt ice cold. I managed to keep my casual pace, even though I wanted to bolt away by instinct. I rearranged my arms to simply look like I had them crossed against the cold, deep down terrified that he would see through it and just know that his bait was tucked away in my jacket. I was literally thinking, nothing to see here, just an ordinary citizen going about his day, hoping my thoughts would translate into my appearance. But I could feel his eyes on me, considering me, weighing me. Then, relief. A string snaps. He turned and joined his fellow thugs in trying to track down their bait. It was only seconds, but I was tensed like a spring, and even at my forced slow pace, I felt shaky, obvious, just asking for one of them to turn back around and start yelling. Or worse, cross the street and attack me, take the dog back, and do more unspeakable things to him. From this paranoia, I kept my pace slow and measured for another block, until a glance back assured me they were gone. Only then did I book it like a madman to the bus station, just making it onto the 5 o'clock bus. Little Pie Dog was lucky. Not only had he saved me from whatever those men had planned, he'd also saved me from the wrath of my mother. I brought him to my parents' home. Mom could be fierce, but my dad was a true softie. As I recounted the little dog's actions, I saw in their eyes that they were more and more impressed with him. My parents carefully tended to his brutalized back legs, bandaging him and then gently placing him on a settee and bringing bits of lamb and water to him. He ate greedily. His little tail was going like a whirlwind. My parents kept saying he was a gift brought to protect me, talking to the little dog like he could understand any of what they were saying. He just wagged his tail and licked at my dad's hands to get the little last bit of lamb taste from his fingers. We decided this meant that the little guy was agreeing with us. I had to leave the next day. Any fear I had about the little guy being turned back onto the streets was squashed. On the drive to the airport, the little dog, whom my father named Parth, which means warrior prince and is a common dog name, rode shotgun on my mother's lap the whole way there. They still have him, too. His legs got better. One's still a little stiff, but he runs like he doesn't notice it. Every time I make it back home, he'll run over, tail thumping, taking all those unnecessary extra tap steps that dogs do when they see their family. And Parth, he's family. He knew I was family before I did, and he tried his best to protect me when I was still stupidly thinking some kid had gotten his kicks in hurting a dog. Parth had gotten me to see and gotten me away from the real danger. I'm always happy to see the little guy, but there's a part of me, a cold, quiet part, that has no problem twisting the knife by asking, what would have happened if I'd taken Avrek up on a drive to the bus station? What if I'd been on time and I'd missed the little pie dog entirely? What would have happened to me? And the thought that really sends the fear shooting back up my throat. What, oh what, would have happened to Parth?
I know I haven't been doing this long, only 50, 60 or so far, and only once before have I felt the need to take a very long walk after a story. This would be the second. For is there anything more evil in the world than something that goes after the truly defenseless? If you liked the video, like the video. If you have a comment to make, leave it in comments. If you'd like to be notified when I upload, please use the subscription function and notification bell. But it's every Tuesday if you'd rather not. I'm just glad you stopped by. Stay strange, stay safe, and take care. Take care of your dogs. And take care of yourselves too while you're at it, my dear strangers.